this is the dream scenario, and I have a tinfoil hat conspiracy that Wizards wants us to do this because he's got a Hedron in his staff. They're telling me what they want me to do. They said, look at Zendikar, look at the ley line. Hey, howdy, hey, everybody. You are watching the MTG Thoughtcast. Congratulations on finding your new favorite Commander Precon review channel. This is Joseph speaking, and somewhere else on the screen or in your ears is my brother, John. And that's the Thoughtcast. John, what's going on, brother?
Hello, this is now John speaking, since we're now addressing each other proper. Hello, good morning, good evening, whatever time of day your preference is.
Yeah. What time do you watch these?
Are you asking me?
Well, I don't know.
In general, ask our comment section. Engagement.
All right, guys. What time do you listen? That's the question for the day.
Oh boy, 3 a.m.
Honestly, I'm there. Today, we are talking Bloomburrow Commanders. We're going to rock through all 4 of them today, and I am personally very stoked about it. I was very surprised looking through these deck lists. And I think that we will have some controversial takes, and we'll have some hot takes here. So let's get ready to dive on in. But before we do, there's just a couple little upkeep things to take care of. If you want to dive into all of the discussion and be a part of everything that we do, jam some Commander games with us, make some memes with us, you can jump on into our Discord, linked down below. It is my favorite place to hang out and talk about Magic, and I think it will be yours too. And it's totally free. So just go ahead and jump down there. And while you're down there looking for the Discord link, there's a bunch of little buttons below the video. There's likes, comments, subscribes, notifications, all of the things. Just go ahead and hit all of those for us. It tells the robots that you want to see and hear us more often, and that makes us really happy, and I think it'll make you really happy too. So go ahead and hit all those. I think that's all the upkeep out of the way. And we can dive straight on in because this is going to be a long one. So, John, do you want to take us away talking about some Squirrels?
Oh boy, the Squirrels. Well, let's get chattered.
Ooh.
With Squirrel Away, the Golgari Squirrel token aristocrat-y thing. It is a big blend of everything. You'll notice that amongst all of these is that there's a big blend of assorted strategies amongst all of them. But the overall theme of this deck we have is making tokens of both creature and non-creature variety, some of them squirrels, some of them other assorted utilities, and we're going to be turning them into value by doing sacrificey things, token generations, lots of like morbid triggers, eating them to other aristocrats effects. It is very sweet. Our lead of this deck is Hazel of the Root Bloom. Shout out to our friend on the Discord who's going to be purchasing this deck for his daughter, who is also named Hazel. This deck is dedicated for you, Hazel.
Shout out Fish. Discorded. Discorded. What am I saying? Dedicated to Fish.
Dedicated to the Discord. Wah! So, Hazel of the Root Bloom is our face commander of this deck, is 2 black-green legendary 3/5 Squirrel Druid. Tap ability, pay 2 life, and tap X untap tokens you control. Add X mana in any combination of colors. And at the beginning of your end step, create a token that's a copy of target token you control. If that token is a squirrel, instead, create 2 of those copies instead.
This seems really good.
Yeah, so what we're reading here is, let's start from the bottom, work our way up, basically. The bottom ability is very similar to Populate. It's not exact word to word. Populate makes token copies of creature tokens. This allows you to essentially make a token copy of anything that is relevant on your board. Creatures are obviously incentivized with the fact on it that if your token is a squirrel, you get to make a second copy of that squirrel. But you can target anything with this as well. If you've got treasures you'd like to make a second copy of, you can make a second copy of that. You can do food. You could do blood. You can do junk. If there's not junk in this deck, but like if you were to take this and do anything else with it as well. Yeah, anything that you've already got that is a token. There are lots of card effects that allow you to create token copies of other permanents as well. So Hazel here would be able to create you tokens or token copies, I should say, of real creatures if you've added in strategies that allow you to do that kind of effect.
Gnarly.
And then getting up to, I mean, both abilities are very relevant, but I feel like her top ability of being able to tap X, untap tokens you control to make X mana in any combination you want, that is wild. That allows you to essentially use tokens that normally can't help mana accelerate you and accelerate your mana.
Yeah, to any new players who are listening to this, that is well worth the 2 life. Don't be precious about your life total. That's the advice going into this deck.
Yeah, you start with 40 for a reason, you know? You have life to burn, and as you will see in the construction of this deck, that life loss is going to be severely mitigated by all of your other aristocraty friends who are going to be gaining you life back in this deck, like Zulaport Cutthroat and friends. There's a variety of them that come in this deck. But yeah, that ability to be able to tap things that normally can't help you make mana, super good. So take things like your clues or your blood, tap them, make you mana, and then you can further do the card effect that token does.
Yeah.
It's very, very cool. Now, if you'd like to take this in the direction specifically towards squirrel, tribal, kindred, whatever you'd like to call it nowadays, that would be your backup commander that comes out of this deck, the Odd Acorn Gang. 3 black and a green.
What a name.
I know. They're so funny. But I think they're really, really neat. Apart from
genius?
What are you talking about?
Never mind. You don't get it.
Okay.
Carry on.
Sorry, I don't know music. I only live in North Nashville. Anyways, the Odd Acorn Gang is a legendary squirrel warrior. It's a 5/5. It comes with menace, trample, reach. Squirrels you control have tap, target squirrel gets +2/+2 and trample until end of turn. Activate only as a sorcery. And when 1 or more squirrels you control deal combat damage to a player, draw a card.
That's banding. This is bands with squirrels.
Bands with squirrels. Yep. Excellent. I mean, it's just a variety of useful keyword mechanics, combat centric related things. And like, even if you're only getting the card advantage off of itself, that's great. You got any squirrel token that taps into it and it becomes like a 7/7, a 9/9 menace, trample, reach, you know, it'll be able to block lots of things as you're ready to start going to combat. When you are ready to start going to combat, it's super evasive, can get big really, really fast, draws you cards when either itself or your other tokens start connecting as well. You only get 1 card for the equal amount of creatures that hit, but if you're hitting multiple players, you can get multiple cards that way.
Yeah, normally I'm upset about that, like when 1 or more abilities, but on something that is incentivizing you to just beef like one big thing and swing in with it, I'm not too upset about that. And yeah, I totally agree. I think the intention with this would be like, pick your 3 best, most evasive squirrels, tap all of your tokens to make them big and beefy, and then attack each player sort of Voltron squirrel style.
Exactly. Yeah. That's incentivized. There's a is here insatiable frugivore. It can sacrifice foods to give creatures you control Exo and Menace. So like that's a good way to get your squirrels in to start hitting multiple players at once. So Odd Acorn Gang goes really, really well with that. But rolling that in to start talking about some of the other brand new cards that do come in this deck. Oh, I guess I'm sorry. Let me backpedal just real fast that because this is a 2-color deck, you do have other options that are reprints. as available commanders that you could play out of this deck. And 2 of those are actually some of your high-value reprints that also come in this deck as well. Out of the box, you can play Belladross Witherbloom as your commander, a 7-mana 4/4 Elder Dragon that at each upkeep, you make a 1/1 black and green pest creature token. Pests have, when they die, you gain a life. And you can pay 10 life to untap all lands you control. Activate only once each turn.
Goodness.
Really good. Yeah, you are throwing a bunch of pests into aristocrat strat things that gains you the life back that you can then use to untap your lands and accelerate even faster with Hazel in the deck then as well.
Yeah, you probably wouldn't want to play this in the command zone, though, out of the box, though. Right?
No, I mean, probably not. I mean, Belladross is a very good commander, but I don't think this is super built well. Well, I mean, it depends, really, because like a lot of this deck is like killing your things and killing opponents' things and then benefits that gain you life as well. So it certainly wouldn't be a bad option, but the deck is certainly not built with it in mind.
Sure.
However, Shatterfang Squirrel General probably would be excellent as a commander right out of the box as well. Yep. 2 and a green, 3/3 legendary squirrel warrior with forest walk. If 1 or more tokens would be created under your control, those tokens plus a squirrel is created instead. And black mana, sacrifice X squirrels. Target creature gets +X -X until end of turn.
If you've never played against a Shatterfang deck, you sweet innocent summer child.
Yeah, there you would certainly, and Shatterfang is also like a $12 card as well. Belladross pushing 18, so your 2 best reprints can also be your alternate commanders. Very cool stuff. Let's dive into some new cards then real fast. I think I don't really have a particular favorite out of this because like it's Golgari sacrificey related stuff. This has never really been a favorite strategy of mine, all things considered, but there are certainly some really sweet cards for general purpose aristocrats that also just fit the bill super well in this deck. Hazel's Brewmaster, I think, would actually probably be, if I had to pick one, probably be my favorite that's here. 3 and a black for a 3/4 Squirrel Warlock. Squirrel Lock. Thank you. 3/4 with Menace. When it enters or attacks, you exile up to 1 target card from a graveyard and create a food token. And she gives foods you control all activated abilities of creature cards exiled with Hazel the Brewmaster.
This is just Agatha's Soul Cauldron.
Kind of, yeah. It's very much like that, except it applies it to your food. So as compared to Soul Cauldron that gives those abilities to your other creatures, you can sit there just with your food tokens that, like, who's going to use removal on a food token?
Yeah.
No one.
What? That's such a cool card.
Yeah. So, like, floor is stuff like, oh, hit a mana dork that got milled there. Now all of your food can produce mana.
Oh, or all of your food. So if you just have like 3 food sitting there and it comes in, you can like pay for itself.
Mm-hmm. If you get a mana dork, and then basically any other creature that you can hit that has some cool activated ability on it, anything that like taps and draws cards, or goodness alive, if you can exile a sack outlet like Viscera Seer to it, now all of your foods are Viscera Seer.
Your foods are Viscera Seers.
That's so cool, dude.
I dig that.
Yeah, it's a really cool one. Moonstone Eulogist is another variant. Yep, Eulogist. Thank you. I'm not very good with words, as you've all known before.
Vocabulary is my passion.
Moonstone Eulogist is 3 and double black for a 4/4 Bat Warlock with flying. When a creature an opponent controls dies, you make a blood token. That counts token or non-token, just anything of your opponent's dies, which, spoilers, this deck is loaded with removal. It is removal heavy. You get blood anytime that happens, which again, blood tokens are very useful with Hazel at the helm, because you can then use that blood for mana or other sacrificing relating things. Like what this card will let you do is that when you sacrifice an artifact, not just blood, any artifact, put a +1/+1 counter on Moonstone Eulogist and you gain a life. So start eating your treasures for mana. This thing will get bigger and gain you life. Start sacrificing your blood for some card advantage or into anything else you have on board that lets you sacrifice tokens. This thing will start gaining you life. So like it balances out the like Hazel life ability that's required there. So I like it. I think it's really, really cool. And it's just versatile enough that like if you were to take this from here and throw this into any deck that's using black and sacrificing artifact tokens in any capacity, or just sacrificing artifacts, this thing can get very big, keep you alive. It's really, really cool. And then last new one I wanted to bring up is a board wipe called Swarmyard Massacre. 3 and double black for a sorcery. You create 2 green. Let me try that again. You make 2 1/1 green squirrel creature tokens. Then each creature that isn't an insect, rat, spider, or squirrel gets -1/-1 until end of turn for each creature you control that is an insect, rat, spider, or squirrel.
Whoa.
Yeah.
This is Crux of Fate for bugs.
Yes, it is. It's The callback here is to the creature types labeled on the land called Swarmyard, which actually is also in the deck
and is also a $15 card.
Yes, it is. That's another one of your reprints. Swarmyard referred to this collection of creature types specifically. And this is great. In this deck alone, most of your creature token generators are squirrels or rats. There's a bunch of things in here that make rats, but this is just very good to you could even pull this out of here if you are doing an insect tribal or you're doing spiders. This is the perfect color to match every single one of those typal strategies. Can't even tell you how stupid this is with changelings.
Throw this in a Shelob Child of Ungoliant deck. Just wipe the board, keep all of your spiders.
And wipe the board, specifically wiping the board with negative toughness, which is very important. You are not going to hit everything with this all the time, but the times that you can catch indestructible creatures with this, perfect. Love board. I
would love to see a time where this was not -10, but I think most of the time it's just going to be like strictly better destroy all of your opponent's creatures. Well, this is in Garrick's wake.
Yeah, this is nice that the card itself does make you 2 squirrels. So if you don't have enough immediately on board right there, you get at least 2 points higher as you cast it.
Sure.
And then, the floor is bad if you have nothing on board really, or stuff is removed as it's being cast. But yes, in most instances, this is going to be a one-sided wipe, which will go very pleasantly into, like I said, the variety of cards reprinted in here that care about killing your opponent's creatures. A bunch of morbid related stuff like Zulaport Cutthroat, as we described earlier, but then also like Poison Tip Archer and where's some of those other things in here? Bastion of Remembrance and Moldervine Reclamation and things of that nature. Like there's a lot of things in here that either kill creatures directly or benefit you for having creatures die. It's super good. We've mentioned several of the high value reprints already so far. Talk about like Belladross and Chatterfang and Swarmyard or whatever. Guys, we got an Unfinity reprint in here. As
I live and breathe.
As our resident singular person here that enjoys Unfinity unequivocally, I'm stoked to tell you that Saw in Half comes in this deck. I can't believe it. Here we are. More people needed to enjoy cards like these. It's such a shame that some of these really, really cool legal designs got stuck into a very mediocre unproduct, personally, but I still enjoy it very much. And Saw in Half
is crazy.
It's so good. Outside of its combo potential, just the ability to it's very flexible. Let me read the card for you, because probably you've never seen this before, anybody. Destroy target creature for 2 and a black at an instant speed. If the creature dies this way,
it actually says sacrifice target creature.
you destroy a creature.
Not be targeting your opponent's stuff with this.
If the creature dies this way, its controller creates 2 tokens that are copies of that creature, except their base power is half that creature's power and base toughness is half, rounded up each time. So yes, as Joseph is alluding to, this in a pinch, I don't know why you really would be interested in, but you could.
What world?
Yeah, you could blow up somebody's creature of this. I mean, I've actually done this. Saw in Half is a card that I play in my Camball Profiteering Mayor deck because I can target somebody. Yeah. It's pretty silly. It's really good in there. So there are instances where you're going to want to hit their opponent's creature with it. But as Joseph is describing, this is a kind of card that you actually will hit something of yours. And then you get 2 token copies while triggering all of your aristocrat style related cards. It's super. We're a big fan.
Nutty.
We're a big fan of that. Other notable hits in here, you've got Second Harvest. Super good at doubling your tokens up. Skull Clamp, another way to turn your tokens into card advantage. Beastmaster Ascension.
Skull Clamp keep creeping up to like $10.
I know.
Swear, they keep reprinting it, and it's just not enough.
It's been in the last 3 precons in a row, and it's still $9.
Still $10. Tell
you what.
Buy up Skull Clamps after this reprint because they will go back to $10.
Exactly. Some other interesting reprints to bring up here. Every single one of these Bloomburrow precons do include a alternate art borderless like animal-fied planeswalker, right? Every single one of these has one of them in them. And in this deck is Garruk, Cursed Huntsman. This is the Golgari colored one from the original Throne of Eldraine. So your Garruk is the card that's in here, so that's super cool. Shocking absolutely no one. You have a deck that makes any of your 3 favorite token friends clang, clang, clang. It's a Fat Academy manufacturer. Here he is. In the deck, ready to go. Morbid Opportunist, again, a very good, draws you cards as things die, super fun. Plum the Forbidden as well, also very cool use of being able to turn tokens into card advantage as well. Instant speed. So if they're about to die, you just eat your board to a Plum the Forbidden and refill your hand. Super. We're a big fan of that.
Love that.
But yeah, so overall, like, while the deck itself boasts being like a squirrel related deck, and there are certainly squirrel cards that are in here, you kind of have to more look at this as it's a Golgari token aristocrat style thing. You're not going to be keeping your tokens on board for too terribly long. You are going to want to throw them into things like sacrifice outlets and destroying effects and into unfavorable combat situations to get them to die, to trigger into cards like these as well. And it's really, really neat, but you obviously could take some of the pieces out of this and turn it into Squirrel Tribal. It's really cool synergy.
You're not going to mention there's a Beastmaster Ascension in the deck?
I said that talking about the reprints. Did I glaze it too fast? I'm sorry.
I didn't catch it, but that to me is the wildest reprint in here. Because like it's gonna teach some people about Beastmaster Ascension, which is like,
this is 5 is ridiculous.
This is 3 mana Craterhoof Behemoth. Like,
yes, it is.
That you have to have strictly enchantment removal to deal with.
Exactly. Yep. I'm
pretty in something that makes a bunch of 1/1s. You're gonna play this on like turn 5 or whatever, and be able to swing with 7 creatures, and all of a sudden they're like 6/6s each.
Yeah.
Nuts.
So
I'm gonna keep saying nuts because we're talking about squirrels.
Haha, chatter, nuts, squirrels. Haha. So how do we improve this deck? Well,
tell me about it.
Let's make some great additions here. Firstly, from the last booster product that we just had, Warren Soul Trader goes ham in here.
Goes crazy in here, dude.
Yeah, it's a 3-mana 3/3 goblin zombie wizard, I believe it is. I forgot to write these down.
That sounds right.
I'm such ashamed of this. With a free sacrifice outlet on it of sacrifice a creature, you pay a life and sacrifice a creature.
Pay a life,
make a treasure. Yeah. Crazy. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
Get Academy
cares about sacking things and making tokens, like
precisely. Yeah. Again, all of this with Academy manufacturer down. If you have it, super.
So just to be clear, you're upgrading this deck, keeping Hazel as the commander, caring more just about making tokens and not necessarily making squirrel tokens.
Correct. Yes. Yeah, I should have mentioned that. I apologize. Yep. Yeah. This is the idea is like we're doing aristocracy kind of thing with Hazel as our means of accelerating these things out and creating duplicates of tokens. Not necessarily squirrels all the time, but if we can keep at least a squirrel around, this will allow us to get like 2 more tokens basically every turn.
Yeah.
Super cool. Which, speaking of possibly making squirrel tokens out of here, Valley Rot Collar is a card that's in the Bloomburrow set itself. Let me make sure I'm reading this correctly. 1 and a black for a 1/3 Squirrel Warlock with Menace that when it attacks, each opponent loses X life and you gain X life, where X is the number of squirrels, bats, lizards, and rats you control. So if you do take this in the direction of making more squirrels or rat tokens in general, this could be a fun little piece you throw in there that just it starts dealing direct damage as it swings. Like it doesn't even have to connect to start hitting everybody.
Like you cast Saw in half on that. And then all of a sudden and now Hazel makes 2 extra copies of those. Yep. And then you just keep populating your board with more of those. This is why Saw in half is ridiculous. The incidental half that I don't know if most people think about is that it makes them tokens.
Yeah, I described that earlier is like if you can get any of these real creatures turned into tokens, then Hazel can start duplicating them. And especially Rot Collar because it is a squirrel.
Yeah, neat.
Insidious Roots from Marta Zakharlov Manor.
One of my all-time favorites.
Nice. Yeah. Gives your assorted creature tokens the ability to just help you make mana. So all of your squirrels and rats and spiders or whatever that you're ended up making, they can now start producing you mana. And one of the keyword abilities that comes from Bloomburrow that is not actually in this deck, I think at all, is the forage mechanic. Is kind of tied to the squirrels that you can either be sacrificing food or exiling cards from your graveyard to do whatever forage effect is. And that will allow you to trigger the secondary mode on Insidious Roots that as cards are leaving your graveyard, you make plants that are then tokens for your token synergy that then are making you mana. And you know what I mean? Like
it's good with Hazel's Brewmaster.
It is. Yes, exactly.
It's in there. You exile a creature, you make a plant, put a counter on it, and then you also make a food token. And both of those tokens, or Insidious Roots' creature tokens can tap for mana, right?
Yes, creature tokens.
Right. So you now have a plant that can tap for mana and a food that has the activated abilities of the thing in the graveyard.
Yep. Precisely.
Dope.
Brief aside to Mirkwood Bats. Because Mirkwood Bats,
that belongs in here.
We don't need to tell you that Mirkwood Bats is busted. This one's a bit pricier, but Nuka-Cola vending machine is also really silly with making foods. And again, you've got manufacturer who's already in the deck as well, so you can just start doing real busted things.
Yeah.
You could certainly skip that one because it's a bit of a pricier card right now, but super
What's it at right now, like $14,
$16. Yeah.
Dang.
So it's a bit of a price here. Then before I start rolling into cuts, just a quick honorable mention of something that would fit into this theme very well. The 2-card combo of Peregrine Took and Experimental Confectioner.
Yeah.
Since you're doing the food token thing in here as well, there are several varieties of cards that make you food tokens. These two together allow you to set up a combo that with enough of those tokens down in play, you just draw your deck.
Nope.
So real sweet.
We love that.
Real sweet. Breezing then, just a couple cuts that I would do personally to make room for some of these here. Nested Shambler is just a little like a too cute kind of thing. Like you can make tokens better than just having a single thing die. You know, it's not awesome. Ogre Slumlord is another one as well. Like it's a little too expensive to be popping out just rats. Like you would prefer to have squirrels over rats. It's neat, but I'm never a big fan of Slumlord.
I mean, Slumlord just makes whenever another non-token creature, including your opponent's stuff, dies.
That's true. You're right. And there is lots of removal in here.
With Death Touch.
Yeah.
To me, it plays out like a weird Ophiomancer. Cut it if you want. It's expensive for what it is. It's a 5-mana 3/3 that doesn't have any protection, evasion.
Exactly
anything.
right. Like we got it. We have to cut something. You know what I mean? And if it's on my decision, I've never been a fan of Slumlord. It just is too expensive, too little payoff. And speaking of things that are too expensive for their payoff, I've never been a big fan of Decree of Pain.
Oh, definitely not. Get that out of here.
It's cool if you can get it to fire off and draw lots of cards, but that is it's what? 8 mana to destroy it?
To wipe the board and then draw some cards is not really what you want to be doing.
Yeah,
you could be playing Endray's Forerunners instead and just win the game.
Exactly. Wolf Willow Haven, there's enough things in here between Hazel and the artifact rocks and things like that. You don't need one dinky little your land can produce next to green, and it's 5 mana to make a single 2/2. Like that's not good enough for in the deck right here. It's neat, but again, out of it goes. And then one of the last ones I would cut is actually one of the other new cards that comes in here, Sword of the Squeak. This is certainly not the deck that this belongs in here. Spoilers, the Offspring deck is all about creating 1/1 tokens. Sword of the Squeak goes much better in that deck.
Yeah, or are you not pulling the Odd Acorn Gang out of this deck?
I don't think so. I think they fit just fine.
Cool. I was going to say, you could also just pull Odd Acorn Gang and Sword of the Squeak out and make that its own deck. Like, there's your start for another 1/1 Squirrel tokens deck. There's so many options.
Yeah, this is very flexible because, again, Golgari Sacrifice is pretty open-ended. This one just happened to be themed around squirrel-related stuff. Again, our opinions on cuts and adds are varied depending on what kind of play style you'd like to do. Yes. But if you were asking me, that's what I would pick. And that is Squirreled Away. Your Golgari Sacrifice, eat all your things, drain your opponent dead, chatter your way to victory.
I love it, dude. Do you see yourself getting this deck?
No.
Any parting thoughts? Yeah, not for you.
Like I said, I've never been a huge fan of aristocracy, especially in the Go. I don't know. I just don't
thinky.
I just don't like. Yeah,
you have to do so much math.
Yeah, I'm barely holding it together as is. Like I said, playing Camball, who does play very similarly to this as well. But at least with Camball, I've got white.
That's true.
I've never really liked Golgari as a color combo.
Fair. Well, thanks for your thoughts on our cast of that deck. John, for our second deck that we're talking about today, are you ready to talk about some raccoons?
Yay, and some
artifacts and enchantments that cost 4 or greater.
Hooray! We love Trash Boys.
Everybody's dream commander deck is artifacts and enchantments that cost 4 or greater. This is actually a really John coded deck of you love a do nothing 4 mana artifact or an enchantment. So this is the animated army deck, and I'm going to give a couple of spoilers before I go into it. We've got what I would consider my most controversial upgrade guide that I have been so excited and thinking about for the last day, and a really weird deck, which is just so fitting for this art for the main commander, which is Bellow, Bard of the Brambles. So it's 1 red and a green for a 3/3 legendary creature, Raccoon Bard. And during your turn, each non-equipment artifact and non-aura enchantment you control with mana value 4 or greater is a 4/4 elemental creature in addition to its other types, and has indestructible, haste, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. That's a whole lot of text. But also
that's pretty wild. That's pretty wild.
I guess dream scenario here is on turn 3 you play Bellow, and then on turn 4 you play some artifact or an enchantment. Obviously, that's not an aura or an equipment. That comes in as a 4/4 with haste and indestructible, and you can swing it at somebody and then hit them, draw a card. So it kind of incentivizes you to play just enchantments and just artifacts. It does also give your artifact creatures or enchantment creatures the base power and toughness warp and indestructible haste on your turn. It does weird things with your cards. So that's the main commander for the deck. There is an alt commander. That's another new card. It is Wild Seer Scoring Maw. It's 3 red and a green for a legendary elemental wolf. It's a 6/6 with trample and just says enchantment spells that you cast from your hand have cascade. That's the whole line of text on it.
Dude, I'm such a fan of that. That looks so cool.
It's really neat. I am going to go ahead and say, don't put this in the command zone out the box. But it's a really cool card to have in the 99. Like when you slam this out of nowhere and then all of a sudden your enchantments just have cascade, like you're kind of killing it. So I like Wild Seer. I definitely like Bellow better with some direction. We'll talk about a couple of new cards in a second here, but this deck is wonky. Like if you look at like the numbers of stuff, it's just kind of a wonky deck. There's some like landfall things in here. Like there's like a rampaging Baloths for some reason. Like you tell me what rampaging Baloths has to do with either of those commanders.
Yeah, I'm looking at that. There's like rampaging Baloths, Lotus Cobra.
Lotus Cobra at least like is a good green card, but like this isn't a landfall deck. Like, what are we doing with some of this stuff in here? There's landfall. There's some expend. There's a tender shoot dryad for some reason. Like, it's so strange. This is like a really good pile of reprints. That has exactly 0 direction. I think that they like had an idea for the commander and then didn't know how to execute it. They're like, gruel stuff, like, and then just threw it together. It literally is just like a dumpster that a raccoon is just digging around in. But that's okay. I'm here to fix that. So real quick, let's talk about some new cards. Some of my favorites in the deck is Alchemist's Talent, which is a class card, which we haven't seen since Commander Legends Baldur's Gate. So Alchemist's Talent is a 4-mana enchantment that the way that classes work is it comes in with the first ability, and then you can level it up by spending mana to then bring it to the next level against that ability, and then you can level up a third time and it gains that ability. So you pay the cost, it levels up, gets things. So Alchemist's Talent on its first level is when it enters the battlefield, you just make 2 tapped treasure tokens. So it sort of gives you like a rebate on 2 of its mana. And then you can pay 2 mana to bring it up to level 2, which is treasures you control have sacrifice this artifact, sacrifice this artifact, and add 2 mana of any one color. So it makes your treasures twice as good. It's the Gold Span Dragon ability, which is unbelievable. If you've ever had 2/3 of a Black Lotus sitting on the battlefield as a treasure, it is mind-blowing the things that you can do with it. So recommend not spending your treasure to activate the level ability, because then you immediately get to make 4 mana with the treasure that it makes on level 1. And then up to level 3 is whenever you cast a spell, if mana from a treasure was spent to cast it, this class deals damage equal to that spell's mana value to each opponent.
Whoa.
This is crazy. Like, it just makes you mana and then makes your mana bigger and then just deals damage off of stuff that you're casting if you use treasure. Crazy. Really big fan of this. I think that this is going to be a sneaky hit. Like, you're just going to play this and all of a sudden your opponents are going to go like, am I dying all of a sudden?
That would be super if you can pair this along with any of the types of cards that can allow your treasures to produce you mana without becoming sacrificed.
Because 100%.
It just says if mana from a treasure, like sources are tracked as mana is produced. So, and there are a variety of cards, especially in these colors, that allow
100%. Yes. Yeah. This is like definitely a new staple if you're playing Gishath, like anything that, like you said, makes treasure tap for mana without sacrificing. So big fan of that. But even then, like, it just makes your treasures sacrifice to add 2 mana instead, which you can split between 2 spells. So like you can pay that 2 mana and then dedicate one of it to casting a spell and then another of it to another one. And then one of your treasures has now cast 2 spells and domed the table for the total mana value of those 2 spells.
Pretty wacky.
Pretty crazy. So that's Alchemist's Talent. Another very cool one, and I think, John, you will understand why I appreciate this card a lot. This is Bright Cap Badger. It's 3 and a green for a 3/4 that, and very importantly, has an adventure for 2 and a green, which is an instant that you can cast. You cast the half, it goes on the adventure in exile, and then you can cast it from exile. So the adventure is 3 mana for an instant that makes 2 1/1 green sapperling creature tokens. And then when you cast the Badger itself, which is a Badger Druid, it's a 3/4. It says each fungus and sapperling you control has tapped to add a green. And then at the beginning of your end step, you make a 1/1 green sapperling creature token.
Oh boy.
Hello, Slimefoot and Squee. I'm a huge fan of this. But even outside of a deck that cares about making sapperlings or fungus or anything like that, this is like a weird Thran Dynamo. Like, you play it on 3 and it makes these 2 sapperlings, and then you cast it on 4 and then can immediately tap those 2 sapperlings for 2. So it sort of only costs 2 mana to cast it from exile as an adventure, and then on your end step immediately makes you another sapperling. So by the time that you've played this and it's come back around to you, you now have 3 green mana available from 1 card that's going to keep making you sapperlings. So anything like that just gives you insane amounts of value on 1 card, I'm a huge, huge fan of. Let alone one that is going to continue to make value and make you mana, and it like fits your 3-drop and your 4-drop slot. Like, huge fan of this. I like what they're doing with the Badger here.
And this is also, let's not discount the fact that it provides that to funguses as well. We just have had within this past year, the last Ixalan had some fungus.
Dude.
Had some
Myco Tyrant loves this, which is also in my Slimefoot and Squee deck. So this will be an immediate include for the fungus among us. So that's Bright Cat Badger. Fungus? Big fungus? That's the name of that deck now. It's Big Fungus. Last one to talk about, because there's not a lot of excitement going on in the new cards in this deck, to be honest. This has gotten a lot of stir on our Discord. This is Rolling Hamsphere. So it's a 7 mana artifact vehicle. It's a 4/4 with crew 3. It gets +1/+1 for each hamster you control. And then when Rolling Hamsphere attacks, you make 3 1/1 red hamster creature tokens, and then it deals X damage to any target where X is the number of hamsters you control. Isn't it
taking literally the nickname Battle Ball?
Yeah, exactly. Like, this is sort of a weird Mere Battlesphere. It's like the same cost as Mere Battlesphere. It does a very similar thing, except it's on a vehicle. So what sucks is like you have to crew it. But what's great is our friend Bello animates vehicles. So if you have a vehicle that costs more than 4, he turns it into a 4/4 creature, which is all that vehicles care about to attack. So you just
indestructible
and haste. So you play this, which is why I'm keeping it in the deck. I would keep this around. I think that anything that can animate vehicles and doesn't have to crew it is dope. So Rolling Hamsphere is staying in the deck, and it's just going to make you a board. I love board in a box creatures. I love things like Tendershoot Dryad, which don't make any sense in this deck, but just allows you to play something and then make a bunch of creatures. I guess what play those things have is board in a boxes allow you to play less creatures and give you some defense so that you can play all of these enchantments that do nothing on their own, like Gratuitous Violence that's in the deck, and you don't have any blockers not left up. I still think it's a weird strategy, but it certainly is a strategy.
It's certainly different for Gruul, at least, right? It's not just
very
Gruul.
Weird for Gruul. Yeah.
You're still kind of doing the big go smash thing, but it's coming from different sources than the traditional stuff.
It's a riff on a classic, I would say. So that's Rolling Hamsphere. And that's all the new cards I'm going to talk about, because we have some really cool reprints to get into. I've already talked about Tendershoot Dryad. That is a $15 card. So that is a unbelievable reprint. Thank you, Watsy. Huge fan of that. As somebody who's been needing a Tendershoot Dryad for Slimefoot and Squee, I'm very grateful to see a reprint of it finally. Greater Good is also in the deck. Weird include, but it's there. Greater Good should be in the Squirrel deck. What are they doing? Anyway, Greater Good, a $13 card. It is a great one. It's a really good way to draw cards in non-card draw colors like green and red. But it's there. Okay, and I need you to talk me through something. Grothma All-Devour?
Sure. What about it?
What do you do with it? Can you explain to me how this card works?
Oh, you fight things with him. That's how it works.
No. Other things fight it.
Yeah.
And then your opponents draw a bunch of cards.
He's a board wipe on a worm.
An optional, like, your opponent can board wipe themselves at any time and just draw like 10 cards. So, okay, hold on. I'm gonna pull the table. So Grothma All-Devouring is a 5-mana 10/8. I've never seen this card before because it came from Battle Bond, and this is the first time it's been reprinted. So Grothma All-Devouring, 5-mana 10/8 legendary worm. Other creatures, all of them, have whenever this creature attacks, you may have it fight Grothma All-Devouring. And then when Grothma leaves the battlefield, each player draws cards equal to the amount of damage dealt to Grothma this turn by sources they controlled. So, like, it just feels weird, dude. Like, it's too thinky for me.
I suppose what this deck is maybe trying to want you to do with this is you get Bellow. Then your
stuff has indestructible, so you can have all of your stuff fight there. But you're drawing cards already. Like, Bellow just gives your indestructible creatures the ability to draw cards when they hit. Like, you don't need to draw more cards. I think that you're gonna. There's a lot of card draw in this deck.
This is just a really slow way to do Harmonize.
100%, which Harmonize is also in the deck, and I would be putting that in there if it wasn't in here already. So, like, there's enough card draw that I don't think you need weird Grothma in the deck. But it is an $11 card.
Grothma's cool with Greater Good.
Yeah, kind of. It's just there's so many weird workarounds of, like,
5 mana, draw 10, discard 3.
You could just play Wheel of Misfortune instead and have 3 mana. I'm going to draw 7 cards. You don't have to do the weird things.
Grothama's always been a very weird one.
Yeah, so strange. Anyway, so that's like the 3 over $10 reprints. And then there's a bunch in this, like, what I consider the, like, I don't know if I really want to buy this card kind of range, which is like $5-ish. There's a Lotus Cobra, there's a Kodama of the East Tree, a Blasphemous Act, there's an Unnatural Growth in the deck, I already mentioned Gratuitous Violence, and there's a Bootlegger Stash. And all of those are kind of in that $5-ish range, which when I'm building a deck, I go like, I probably don't need that. Like, I could put that $5 towards something else. So really happy to see all of these reprints in here. Let's talk about upgrading the deck, because we got a lot of ground to cover here. So is 19 cards in the deck that benefit from Bellow's ability. And I don't think that's enough. I think if you're playing a Bellow in the command zone, which I definitely want to do, because he's a silly little raccoon that makes my silly little enchantments scary, I really want to do that. Yeah, I think we just need to shave down some of these ancillary things, like landfall. There's some weird expend in here. There's just a lot of things going on. Let's hone in the strategy. We trim up the fat, and we're gonna make this a little better. So, John, if I were to ask you how to put more 4-mana enchantments in the deck, is there anything that you could think of off the dome of what you'd want to be putting in here?
A 4-mana enchantment.
Potentially 4-mana enchantments that you don't have to pay mana for most of the time.
Oh, the ley lines, right?
We're putting ley lines in here, baby. My entire upgrade guide is put 5 ley lines in the deck. We're talking Leyline of Combustion. We're talking Leyline of Abundance. We're talking Leyline of Life Force, Leyline of Punishment, and Leyline of Vitality. And some of those do things for you, but more importantly, they're 4 mana enchantments that come in for free on turn 0. So, like, the cool one is Leyline of Abundance. Like, that one is, it makes your non-lands tap for more mana. Leyline of Combustion does something with damage. Leyline of Punishment says that players can't gain life. Damage can't be prevented, so you're just incidentally going to get some stuff from this. This is like dream scenario of stupid 4-mana enchantments that don't do anything that is all Bello wants. It's literal trash. Like, he just wants trash to throw at people. So what you can do now in this deck is, like, have a Leyline come in, or 2 Leylines come in on turn 0, and then turn 1 you play Elvish Mystic or a Soul Ring or something. And turn 2 play Bello, and then all of a sudden your Leylines can swing for 4 on turn 2 and draw you cards. Are you kidding me? This is the dream scenario, and I have a tinfoil hat conspiracy that Wizards wants us to do this because he's got a Hedron in his staff. They're telling me what they want me to do. They said, look at Zendikar, look at the Leyline. So
that's so funny you think that, because the Leylines are Ravnica.
There was ones on Zendikar. Damn it. All right. I had this whole thing. I was like, I'm the meme of the guy from It's Sunny at the board, and I'm like, no, it's from Zendikar. Anyway, put Leylines in the deck. Here's what I would say to take out. Definitely remove Burnished Heart. What are we doing? Putting Burnished Heart in decks. 6 mana to go get 2 lands. We're in green. Get out of here. Take out Decimate too. Can we stop with Decimate? I'm so over. There's going to be so many times where you just have to target one of your own enchantments for Decimate just to, like, make something happen. And that feels so bad. Decimate, for those who don't.
Now, granted, your animated stuff would be indestructible.
I get it. You could just play better removal. Get Decimate out of here. You know what Decimate is not? Is a 4-mana enchantment. So get out of here. Decimate's gone. For those who don't know, Decimate, you have to do all 4 of the targets. You have to have a target for all 4. Otherwise, you are not legally allowed to cast it. So there's going to be a non-zero amount of times where it just rots in your hand. And yes, some of that is mitigated. It's mostly the enchantment that makes you not be able to cast Decimate, and you are playing those, and they will be indestructible. So maybe there's some play to Decimate. I still don't love it. I also don't like Starstorm in this deck. We're not like a ramp deck or an X spells deck. It's fine. It's whatever. There's already a Blasphemous Act in here, and that's all I really care about doing to creatures. So get Starstorm out of here. We already talked about it earlier as well, but Rampaging Baloths is in this deck for some reason, and I don't want it. So goodbye. You can put that in a landfall. You don't even play this card in landfall decks. Famously, this is like a hot take of yours, is that you don't play Rampaging Baloths in landfall decks, right?
What, me? I mean, yeah. I do have one in. Actually, yeah, I've got Baloths in 2 of my landfall decks. Yes.
What am I thinking of that doesn't? Oh, there was an EDH Retcast that was about. Shout out EDH Retcast. That Rampaging Baloths just feels like 6 mana. Is that really what you want to be doing for 6 mana? Is like play it and then pass for a whole turn, and then it comes back around, and now you've made a 4/4. Like, whatever. Get out of here. I was gonna cut Grothma. I have it on my notes of Grothma unless otherwise convinced.
And have you otherwise been convinced?
Maybe you've otherwise been convinced about it. I think Grothma at least makes the table go like, huh? Which is some neat play. So I think in its place, cut Spine of Ishsaw. I understand why it's in the deck. It is a 7-mana artifact that just nukes something and then comes back to your hand if it dies. 7 mana is just so much. Even with Bellow down, for it to become a 4/4 that can attack with something. I'm
right.
not
That's anti-synergy with Bellow, right? Because the best thing
that makes
want
to be indestructible.
Yeah,
you
the best
to die.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the best part about Spine.
Yes. So leave Grothma in and take out Spine of Ishsaw. Last card we're taking out is Teapot Slinger. It's a 4-mana 3/4 with Menace. It is obviously a raccoon. And then it says whenever you expend 4, Teapot Slinger deals 2 damage to each opponent. That's all it says. And expend 4 is as you've spent your 4th total mana casting spells during a turn.
Yeah. Which, like, not a knock at expend, because like it's a really cool mechanic. I think it's really neat. Is
totally cool because it just benefits. It's sort of like landfall in a weird way, where it just kind of benefits you for playing the game. However, I don't want that on a 4-mana 3/4 to just like, okay, I'm dealing 2 damage to everybody a turn on my turn only. Not a fan of Teapot Slinger. It's also an uncommon, so I'm just taking the boot. And all 5 of those things we're exclusively replacing with ley lines. And that is my upgrade guide for the raccoons. I think this is a really neat deck. I think that what they are handing you in the box is not a neat deck. But I think with a little bit of tweaking, you are totally able to make something cool. There's some really cool includes in the deck too. Like there's some neat play with Kodama of the East Tree, where you make permanents and then you go find like another one. I really enjoy that. There's a handful of other, like some of your enchantments are just good ones that you'd want to be playing anyway, like Path of Discovery. So when it enters, it'll actually see itself entering as a creature for whenever a creature enters the battlefield. So there's like some very strange play, and like you need to do like a brief summary on how layers work to understand the deck, because there's going to be a lot of weird stuff with, well, this kind of enters as a creature. Like, take your time, learn the rules on how layers work. You can just look up MTG layers, and there should be some pretty good summaries out there for you to understand how the deck works. But I would
add my 2 notes in here that if you're looking to do upgrade of things outside of janky ley lines, is perhaps some additives into the deck that keep Bellow alive, because as this strategy revolves around him being there, you'll get stuck with all of these high cost enchantments and artifacts that can no longer swing if Bellow becomes unable to be cast or is just constantly getting removed.
Yes.
So a little focus and protection. And that's actually probably why a lot of these other bigger creatures are in here, so that your strategy just does not fall apart when Bellow leaves the table.
It's true. All they have to do, like, to shut down the leyline plan is kill Bellow. And then, but even then, you just wait until turn 5, and then you get to do it again. Like,
yeah. So a real answer would be throw protection and.
Whoa. My answer was real. I am being dead serious about the ley lines. Otherwise it plays out as kind of like your standard like Gruul ramp. There's a Thran Dynamo in here that's like, that's cool that it's a creature and then can immediately, well, I guess it can immediately tap for 3 anyway. But like, yeah, there's some neat ramp play in here. Goreclaw is really fun because it gives your 4/4 enchantments +1/+1 and trample, which helps with getting them in and drawing cards. So
there's just something so fun with connecting with a gratuitous violence. You know what I mean?
God.
Like gratuitous violence doing it to itself. That's so much fun. Are you kidding me?
And that's why, like, I think this deck is sweet, because it's otherwise, I'm going to say it, otherwise relatively unplayable, do nothing enchantments that all of a sudden do something because they make themselves creatures with Bellow.
Would you even say it's kind of trash?
Yes, this is a dumpster trash deck, and it is very fitting that they put a raccoon on it. I dig it. I don't know if I'll be buying this deck, but it's definitely something I'm going to keep an eye on and see. Like, I would like to see somebody make the Bellow Leylines deck.
So, Joseph.
Yes.
Have I told you I've been getting into some music lately?
I don't believe that for 2 seconds. I know that
really?
This is a bit, but there's no way.
You ruined my bit.
No, I'm adding to the bit. I'm yes and.
Oh, yes and? Oh, because I've been hanging out with Zinnia lately, and I've really been listening to The Offspring.
Oh, that was a good bit. I really actually like that joke. All right. Did you have to Google that The Offspring was a band? Be honest.
No, I knew that.
Wow.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That was my bit. Welcome to Family Matters. This is your token deck. And really, I think this is actually really one of the coolest decks of the 4 here. This is doing something that's just like, it's familiar, but also doing kind of a weird take on how to do this sort of like taking extra advantage of your creatures entering the battlefield and creating tokens of them and then duplicating those tokens. And it's just really, really neat. I'm a big fan of this one. So let's dive into it. Family Matters is a Jeskai colored deck that is blue, red, and white, helmed by Zinnia, Valley's Voice. Is blue, red, white, actually. So no extra mana there needed. Blue, red, white for a legendary 1/3 bird bard. Love that creature type. We love bird bards. It has flying. Zinnia gets +X+0, where X is the number of other creatures you control with base power 1, which is most likely just going to be tokens all the time. We can get to those tokens, though, with the second half that says creature spells you cast have Offspring 2. As a reminder of what Offspring is, because it's a brand new mechanic, you may pay an additional 2 as you cast a creature spell. When you do, when that creature enters, you create a 1/1 token that is a copy of it. And that is actually, it scales as a full scale copy of the card. So whatever colors it is, whatever abilities it has, whatever creature type it is, and whatever its mana cost is, it retains all of it.
Sick.
It's very cool. So what we are looking to do in this deck is cast creatures and have essentially a kicker cost, right? Because like all mechanics are kicker. Surprise. This is like true hardcore kicker though, right?
Really
like
is.
If you've just got a 2 extra mana off of any creature that you cast, you get an extra copy of that thing. Now, your extra copy is only a 1/1, but this deck is taking advantage of that in such a way you're not really caring that much. Oh, of course, Zinnia does care if that token is a 1/1, but what we're looking to do with this here and how it's built is the things that we are looking to duplicate, they are doing relevant enter the battlefield effects. They are creating other things as they come into play, or if we can, if sometimes they can die. I think there's like a card or 2 in here that's like that. What we're looking to do, we're looking to have a lot of creatures come in all at once, regardless of how big they are naturally. And Zinnia just happens to get a bonus as the Offspring tokens, or anything else that we're creating as a 1/1 token. She can get herself bigger as we go about doing that. We have a backup commander in this deck as well that can help us get to these creatures. Arthur, Marigold Knight, is 2 blue, red, and a white. Legendary Mouse Knight. It's a 4/5 with haste. When Arthur and at least one other creature you attack. That was almost English. Let me try that again. When Arthur and at least one other creature attack, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may put a creature card from among them onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order, and then return the creature to its owner's hand at the end of combat. So you start getting in with this, plus like literally anything else you have on your board, any other dinky little token or whatever. You're going to go 6 deep, pull any creature you find there, and that creature is now coming in tapped as attacking, which you now get its enter the battlefield triggers. If it is able to connect and has a trigger of any kind like that, you'll get that benefit. And then Arthur returns it to your hand. And you want to do that because then if you've got Zinnia down as well, that creature you found is now back in your hand that you can then offspring it later.
This is crazy. I'm way more interested in Arthur than I am in Zinnia. That's like Winota. That's like Shadowfax. That's like the Boar God. Like it does. All of these are very powerful effects that they've like crammed onto one 5-mana 4/5 with.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a fan of Arthur. I think that's just it's a little like it's a little conditional to get something just random off the top, and it is neat that it bounces back to your hand. But like if you don't have Zinnia, that bounced back to hand isn't really benefiting you at all. So it's like it's super cool that it's here, and I certainly wouldn't cut it from the deck as is, but it wouldn't be the commander I'm running personally. Sure. I this deck is built with Zinnia in mind. Certainly take into account that if you take a quick skim through things that are reprinted in here, what these reprint cards, especially what they're looking to do, you are just looking to have themselves plus an extra enter the battlefield. So you just look at something simple like Blade Splicer, who says when it enters the battlefield, you make a 3/3 colorless golem. If you offspring that, then you get a second Blade Splicer that then makes another golem. So, and then the deck is filled with all kinds of other things that just really care about doing its own thing, enter the battlefield, regardless what its power toughness is. Stuff like Cloud Blazer and Inferno Titan and Rose Rune Treasurer, Sun Titan, Thopter Engineer, like all of these things. They don't really care how big its other copy of itself is. It just wants to do its enter the battlefield trigger again. So that's why I described that this deck is it's a very familiar feel of kind of doing like Blink, but then also doing tokens and giving you just token copies of things that have enter the battlefield triggers. So you're doing this weird mishmash of token Blink.
I dig it, dude. This is very cool. It's
really, really cool. So let's go into some of these new cards that we have in here. Talking firstly at the dude you'd certainly want to make, and this actually brings up a really cool rules interaction. Agate Instigator. 1 in a red for a 1/3 lizard rogue. This rogue naturally has offspring for 1 in a red. And
surely whenever it stacks, right?
It does.
Yeah.
It does stack.
It's whenever like kicker.
Yeah, whenever another creature you control enters the battlefield, this creature deals 1 damage to each opponent. That is just impact tremors on a body.
Straight up.
Yeah. So without what is that thing called? Zinnia. Without Zinnia, this can either by itself be like Witty Roastmaster, kind of.
Yep.
It can offspring itself for a total of 4 mana, and you get it plus a duplicate of itself. So now you're doing 2 damage per creature that comes into play. That's Perforos levels of strong.
Yeah. For exactly Perforos mana as well.
Exactly. And if you can follow this after Zinnia and you have the mana to do it, like I said,
6 mana to bolt the table on each creature entering is so good.
Exactly. You're not going to get instances like this too terribly often, but if you were to take some more of the offspring cards that come from Bloomburrow itself and play it with Zinnia, offspring does stack. And they actually certainly want you to take advantage of like that. Just jumping ahead real quick into reprints, there is Helm of the Host in this deck. You start making clones of Zinnia, that offspring 2 now stacks every creature that you cast. So they certainly thought about that as a strategy that you could try to do with this, is start making clones of Zinnia that then gives you extra offspring 2 on every creature that you cast past that point. It's very silly.
Yeah. Well, while we're talking about Helm of the Host, do you want to talk about how silly it is they've included an actual infinite combo in the deck?
I'm not sure what you're talking about. What do you mean?
Helm of the Host and Combat Celebrant is infinite combats included in the precon.
Huh. I didn't notice that. Neat.
Strange. I mean, I dig both of these cards in the deck. I know that WotC doesn't love putting infinite combos in. I guess this is pretty safe because it's like 9 mana alone for Helm of the Host. And then Combat Celebrant is a 3 mana 4/1. So it's really fragile. But if you just equip Helm of the Host onto Combat Celebrant, you get infinite combats.
Huh. I've never seen that one before. That's super cool. Neat.
Anyway, just thought we'd talk about it while you were there. Onward.
All right. Let's keep going with some new cards then. Jacked Rabbit.
Unbelievable.
Look at this dude.
Can we start with the flavor text, which is squash, what it is and what it does?
That is just absolute Chad Rabbit energy of
that's Big Chungus.
It be what it be. So, Jacked Rabbit is X1 and a white for a 1/2 Rabbit Warrior with Ravenous. The first time we've seen this keyword since the Warhammer 40k decks from the Tyrannid deck, actually.
Nice.
Very interesting in a different color from Teamer as well. So super neat to see it back here. Ravenous means that it enters with X1/1 counters on it. And if the X is 5 or more, you draw a card when it enters. Cool. We love that. When Jacked Rabbit attacks, you create a number of 1/1 white rabbit creature tokens equal to Jacked Rabbit's power. So if you play this without any X, it is just a 2-mana 1/2 that when it attacks makes you a 1/1. Neat. Well, that's super neat as is. But then just as the game goes on, like you've said before multiple times, Joseph, you love the kind of cards that provide you a board on one thing as is. Yep. Now, this one's a little slower because it has to attack, but you get it every time it attacks. And that's
also a great one to just offspring out. And then all of a sudden you're swinging with both of them. And like even for 4 mana, you play it for X equals 0, but you offspring it. And then you make you make a 1/2 and a 1/1, and then on the next turn you attack with both of those and make 2 1/1s. Like
exactly, yeah. Because like Zinnia cares aside from doing the offsprings thing, Zinnia gets its own power boost equal to creatures that have base power 1.
Yep.
And there are other cards in here as well that care about that as well. So like that's not necessarily super. Like this is very flexible. You can either have it be low or have it be gigantic. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's whatever situation calls for. And then my last favorite funny one, and I certainly think this has got to be probably my favorite card amongst all of these precons just because of the meme living on here. It's Murmurations. Is a 5-mana white enchantment. It says birds you control get +1/+1 and have vigilance. And at the beginning of your end step, for each spell you've cast this turn, make a 1/2 blue bird creature token with flying named Stormcrow. Absolutely, yes, sir. They have stapled.
It's Stormcrow.
They have stapled Storm onto an intangible virtue. That are you kidding me? Every end step so like by itself, if you just cast this for the turn as is, it will see itself as your one spell you've cast. So this is 5 mana, give your birds intangible virtue, and then it makes you a bird. And then from that point forward, for every end step, it'll track the spells that you've cast, and you get a bird. For every single
ridiculous.
It's so good.
Like whoever designed that card, they just they ate that up.
It's phenomenal. And the best part about this as well is that even with the power and toughness boost, this still works with Zinnia because Zinnia does say that she gets her base power. So not only does this boost Zinnia herself, but the birds you create are also boosting Zinnia, and they all now have vigilance.
Oh, good.
This, if you are keeping Zinnia as the commander, this absolutely is going to be one of your all-star non-creature spells in the deck. Absolutely keep it.
Also, at very base, it comes in and then tracks itself as being cast, which means you're going to make a Stormcrow at the end of your turn.
I said
when
that
it comes
already,
in.
yes.
Yeah, I was listening.
You're repeating me. That's fine.
Yeah.
We're storming. The storm count is now at 2.
Right. I love that you have to keep a storm count to make Stormcrows.
I'm a big fan of it.
Again, though, we have to rename the storm scale at this point. They're giving us storm in every set these days.
Oh, let's retroactively call it the companion scale.
Yeah, companion scale, banding scale would work too.
You got it.
Anyway, so that's very cool.
That's the new stuff I wanted to talk about. Diving into some of the reprints here, we briefly touched already Helm of the Host. That is going to be one of your better as far as the value is concerned. Helm of the Host is fantastic, right? So Helm of the Host is definitely one of your higher points here as far as your reprints. Luminous Broodmoth is also in here. Funny enough, also amongst one of the bonus sheets that you can open from Bloomburrow itself as well. So here's another way that you can grab yourself Luminous Broodmoth. Just allows your non-flyers, as they die, they can come back into play as flyers, which is super cool.
Sick. Yeah, it's a great card.
Quick little bit of recursion there. And Curiosity Crafter was also a very interesting one. I didn't realize it had gotten as expensive as a reprint as I had seen before, because it only had ever been in one other previous deck. It's a 4-mana 3/3. It gives flying, no max hand size, and when a creature token you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. And that one is not limited to one or more. So as many tokens as you connect with, which this deck is making a ton of. And certainly this is a fantastic card to Offspring as well.
Yeah,
just 2 extra mana. Joke. 2 extra mana thrown in there, and now every token that connects draws you 2 cards each.
Yeah, including the token that it makes.
Pretty darn good. Speaking of card draw, you want to talk about something I missed?
Yes. Let's talk for a second. I'm going to rewind back to the new cards. We're going to talk about Polywog Prodigy, which is one of the most talked about cards from Bloomburrow Commander as a whole. So it is kind of being heralded as the new Rhystic Study, or a new Rhystic Study. So it's 1 and a blue for a 1/3 frog wizard with Evolve, which is when a creature you control with either greater power or greater toughness enters, it puts a +1/+1 counter onto it. And whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell with mana value less than Polywog Prodigy's power, draw a card. So it does practically nothing the turn it comes in, but then on your 3rd turn, if you play a thing or 2 that evolves it, all of a sudden, you're going to be drawing cards off of your opponent's mana ramp. You're going to be drawing off of their cantrips, off of their counter spells. I think that you are severely underestimating what this card is going to do because it evolves itself. If it didn't have Evolve, I would say it was a bad card, that you would have to put stuff on it. But it gives itself the ability to scale as the game goes on. And then all of a sudden, off of 3 mana, 4 mana spells that your opponents are casting, non-creature spells, you're going to just be drawing cards off of those. And it's not limited to 1 per turn like WotC's been doing a lot. It is currently pre-ordering for $20. So we'll see how that holds, whether this is actually a great opportunity. We're going to see whether you're right about it or whether I'm right about it. Because if I'm right about it, I think it's going to be a $40 card.
Okay. Because I read this to be on the opposite end of it is, okay, let's vacuum this. In this deck, like where your focus is creating offspring tokens of things, and your general strategy is 1/1s. You're going to evolve this twice, 3 times, maybe?
I think it's more than that, because look, you have like your Arthur that's a 4/5. Jackrabbit comes in at whatever the game calls for at this point. You've got, it also goes off of toughness. So like your Junkwinder has like 6 toughness, is going to evolve this thing. I think this is going to evolve much faster than you think it's going to.
Okay. So
because I think a lot of the Zinnia strategy is making the offspring that's a 1 base power, base power 1. But like there's not a ton of base power 1 creatures in the deck. Like just scanning through it, there's more 2s and 3s and 4s, which will evolve the Polywog Prodigy. Once this gets up to be a 3/5, which that alone, it becomes a 2-mana 3/5 very quickly. A 2-mana
3/5 that you're not going to swing with, because you're going to want this for its card advantage when that goes off.
3/5 blocks so well,
and that it's going to be blocking the creatures that your opponents are casting. That this does not draw you cards off of.
You offspring this with Zinnia, and then all of a sudden they both have Evolve and base power 1 for Zinnia. This is an unbelievable card in this deck.
There's too many restrictions in it on like when it draws you cards, and it's on a creature body, so it's just going to be.
Sometimes most of your cards don't say draw a card ever on it.
Draws your cards sometimes, as compared to Rhystic Study that's going to draw your cards all the time.
It's not Rhystic Study, but I think that in this deck, it does a decent impression of it.
Is this going to draw you once a turn like Esper Sentinel can? No, of course it's not. No, of course it isn't.
You'll draw once a turn way more often than you think it's going to.
You won't. Not everyone's going to have non-creature. Esper Sentinel hits non-creature regardless what its mana value is. This thing only sees a particular down lower. And like, what makes Esper Sentinel so good is it's going to draw you cards on the rotation it comes down, whereas this thing certainly is not.
Hey, I'm gonna end our argument here. I think those who are listening can comment down below which one of us do you think is right.
You are absolutely wrong, but I mean, we can debate this. We'll continue to debate this later.
This is a low separate video. It's just you and me debating about Polywog Prodigy.
All right. Well, since you sucked up the rest of my reprint time, I'll just briefly.
We have all the time in the world, baby.
All right. Well, let's briefly hit the rest of these real fast. Your full art critters card that comes in here is Elspeth, Sun's Champion. So that's super cool. Elspeth is very good in the token strategy. Pops out 1/1s, helps you remove larger creatures out of your way. You had talked about Junkwinder earlier as well. This thing is absolutely ridiculous in a tokens deck, especially if you can offspring it, right? It'll see itself. Basically come in as a token and tap your things down. Like being able to freeze down an opponent's creatures allows you for combat super fast. And I just got a kick out of Boss's Chauffeur. I'm going to say Chauffeur. These are the kinds of cards that are absolutely ridiculous when you offspring them. The ones that naturally come in with counters that then bypass the part of the offspring token being a 1/1. And in fact, this actually becomes better as a 1/1 because Chauffeur is naturally a 0/0. So your offspring is actually going to be slightly bigger. And then it naturally comes in with counters as well. A lot of the reprints in here, like this one, have like Alliance as well. So like that's certainly a strategy that you're looking to do as part of this deck is a bunch of tokens coming in all at once. But we can make this better. So let's do that.
Tell me about it.
Let's just briefly let's get the one.
If you're gonna cut Polywog Prodigy from the deck,
I didn't even look at it because I don't know. It's totally fine. I don't know. We brought up Esper Sentinel. Again, you can do this if you want. Esper is a very expensive card, so
that card's so due for a reprint.
Yeah, it just was insane in Modern Horizons 3. It came out in like retro foil, whatever. So maybe it's lower now, but
very low impact.
Point is, it's a good card in here, but don't force yourself in it. Another expensive one, if you just happen to have one around, Charismatic Conqueror from the Ixalan Vampire deck. This card is very silly if you are able to offspring it, because how its trigger works is if you have more than one of them down in play, your opponents cannot abide by the restriction cost of the second one if they pay to the first one. It's not a thing that you can do. So if you have more than one down, like just the two, if you're doing it off of offspring, you get the benefit now at this point of they either tap down the creature to the first charismatic and you get a 1/1 from the second charismatic, or they choose to not tap their creature and you get 2 1/1s from both charismatic conquerors. So you get a token out of it regardless what happens, what their choice is. It's just the way that it's worded. But again, it is also like an $18 card. So if you have it, cool. If you don't force yourself to throw this in here. So if we're talking about some lower end stuff here, let's throw some combo potential in here with Peregrine Drake. And to an extent, Palinchron as well. But again, Palinchron's expensive, but Peregrine Drake is certainly the cheaper version of it. An offspring of Peregrine Drake turns into net positive mana. Peregrine Drake is a 5 mana, enters, untaps up to 5 lands. If you have the 2 extra sitting around, you now get another one that still retains its trigger to untap 5 lands. So you can turn 7 mana into 10, potentially, on the turn that you offspring it, to then follow it up with more spells from there. And in the case of Palinchron, If you offspring it, that's infinite mana, because Palinchron naturally comes with an ability to bounce itself back to your hand, and Palinchron untaps 7 when it comes into play.
2 seconds.
Joseph's got his on the back wall, so we're going to go check real quick. But if I'm not mistaken, it's 7 mana, untap 7.
7 lands.
7 lands. So you pair this down with Zinnia. So
sorry, I just had to go check out my graded slabbed foil Palinchron real quick.
So you offspring Palinchron. Palinchron, the token one, comes in, untaps your 7 lands. The original comes in, you do floating mana in response. It untaps then 7 as well. That 7 can then be retapped again. You're now up to 14 total of mana. 4 of that can now be spent to go into bouncing Palinchron back to hand, and you're now back to where you were with 1 extra mana. You do that on repeat.
Oh, yeah, you just make infinite Palinchrons.
You're infinite Palinchrons and infinite mana. If you're
that's a very affordable and accessible card.
Yeah. I mean, it also doesn't take that much to do with Peregrine Drake either. You just need something else down in play, like Cloudstone Curio, to be able to bounce Peregrine Drake back to your hand.
Cloudstone Curio is dope in this deck.
Oh, yeah, Cloudstone. And it's pretty cheap right now as well, because it was just in Ravnica Remastered as a non-artifact permanent comes into play. You can choose another permanent, shares a type with it, and return it to its owners, to your hand. I believe it's just your control. I don't have it read. So. Loyal Apprentice is also another really cool one. I thought it'd be here as well. It creates you a 1/1 flying artifact Thopter at your combat if you control your commander. So it just pops out more 1/1s. It's really cool. It's really cool to offspring off of Zinnia as well, because you are now creating 2 more 1/1s each combat as long as you control Zinnia. Super neat.
And it comes in on turn 2, right?
Yeah, I believe Loyal Apprentice is a 2-drop. It might be a 3-drop. I could be mistaken on that. Loyal.
So even like 2 mana for that Loyal Apprentice.
Yep, it's
and
a 2 mana. 2 mana.
3 mana for
2/1.
Zinnia. You make a 1/1. Mm-hmm. Then on your following turn, you've just got good stuff.
It's good very stuff. Cool, very cool. And this one could also be up to debate as well, because you're doing a token strategy. Halo Fountain would be a really cool use for these 1/1s. Halo Fountain itself naturally pops out 1/1s and then gives you something to do with all of these extra 1/1s that isn't combat related, including up to a win condition if you happen to get that far. But it draws you cards, it pops out 1/1s. It's really, really neat. I'm a big fan of that one. As a honorable mention here, if you are feeling really scandalous, you're in the colors for Dovescape, which is a silly enchantment that says spells become countered and their controllers make 1/1 birds equal to that spell's mana value. It says you are doing.
I'm in.
Since you're doing the 1/1s strategy in this deck, you could just get Zinnia extra large by now just stopping everybody from casting spells, and now just everybody has birds.
I like it.
It's really, really neat. But we need to make some cuts to put these cards in here. I don't know how I keep ending up with the decks that have Angel of the Ruins in it, but just please,
what a bad card.
This isn't even good in here. Like, what are you gonna do? 9 mana?
Yeah, literally 9 mana just to nuke 2 more artifacts and enchantment.
I mean, it's cool if you could cheat it down with Arthur, but
neat.
We're done with Angel of the Ruins. Please stop doing Angel of the Ruins. Illusory Ambusher is another. I've always seen this card before, and it reads cool, but it just never does the cool thing. It's a 5 mana 4/1 cat illusion with flash that when it's dealt damage, you draw that many cards. So it's trying to be a fog that draws you cards equal to the damage that it prevents, but just like again,
5 mana?
5 mana to block 1 creature. That in Commander, you're not really
7 mana to block 2 creatures.
Hey, I mean,
that's what we want to be doing in this deck, is holding up 7 mana.
That's the thing. It's like that reads cooler than it is. Ooh, block 2 whole creatures of combat and draw a card for every damage prevented. That reads cool, but it's not. This is not the kind of card. Get it out of here.
Do you know what it's really bad at doing is blocking things that have trample.
Exactly, which I was going to say that like when you're
one damage.
Yeah, when you're doing combat related things in Commander, chances are those creatures have evasion, very seldom. And so even then, if you go to block this at a creature that's not evasive, congratulations, you've paid 5 mana to throw a 4/1 in front of a 1/1 and draw 1 card.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely not. Get that out of here. The Loyal Apprentice would be a good swap in for Thopter Engineer. Like Thopter Engineer is certainly cool that you could offspring it and it makes 2 Thopters. But you're not doing artifact creatures. So yeah, we don't need that in here. Get it out. Stolen by the Fae is another one that also like for this kind of strategy reads cool, but it's just like, It's blue, and X. It returns a target creature with mana value X to its owner's hand, and you make X 1/1 fairies. It's a sorcery, though. Like, you can't catch anyone with this. Yuck. It's neat that it makes the 1/1s, and you could actually use this on stuff that you control, that, like, you return a creature of yours to your hand, make 1/1s, and then it's back in your hand to offspring again. Like, that's certainly why it's here, but you can do better. Again, put just hand blink things back into your hand. Making just a bunch of 1/1s off of something like that is not really what you're looking to do in here.
Yeah.
And then I was just kind of a weird one here of a Rowdy Research. 6 and a blue for an instant that costs 1 less for each creature that attacked this turn, and it draws 3 cards. So like,
I kind of dig it.
It's not the worst. Like, this was probably like I was just needed 1 extra cut. Like, this card is not awful, but I mean, it's cool that it doesn't care who's doing the attacking. So like, if one person swung somewhere else with tons of creatures, you can get this down to a blue without having any combat coming at you.
Which Ancestral Recall.
It is. Like, I don't think this card is bad, and it certainly is like the one that is like certainly on the edge of keep it if you like it, but I think you can do better card draw in here.
Yeah. At risk of soaking up more time, how do you feel about Pull for Tomorrow?
I like Pull from Tomorrow, right? Just like X cost draw spell things are neat. I don't think it's amazing in this deck because you're not really in the super get a bunch of mana colors, but it's not dreadful.
Fair.
Pull that could probably be the split. Let's do 50-50 split.
Yeah, cut one of those, whichever one you like less.
Yep. For me, it would be Rowdy Research, but Pull from Tomorrow is certainly an option.
I also think in that category we could put Cut a Deal as well, because it's a sorcery and we're playing blue.
That is
just a real card drop, like Polywog Prodigy.
Or cut Polywog Prodigy. But anyways,
no.
On that note, that is the Family Matters deck. What I really like about this strategy is that because Zinnia just does super generic-y feel, like it's one of these commanders that is just designed to allow you to do the set's fun mechanic on cards that don't naturally have it. And what that means is that this deck with these colors is very broad. You could take Zinnia and the strategy of creating extra duplicates of creature spells as you cast them, and you can go in a variety of directions. Like, do you want to play Jeskai birds? And now every bird lord comes with an extra bird? Fantastic. You can do that. Would you like to play Jeskai colors and play the creatures that enter naturally with +1/+1 counters? I saw somebody made a mock-up list of doing Zinnia with modular, which sounds very cool.
Oh, that's so sick.
Yeah, offspringing the artifact creatures since you're doing the colorless mana thing, so it's going to be very easy to get them down, and those modular things are now coming in with extra +1/+1 counters. Fantastic. Do you want this to be a token strategy? Like what's kind of included in here with things like Alliance and the token enablers and things that care about the tokens that you create. That's certainly a thing you can do as well. It's just generic enough on the ability that it does that the amount of directions that you could take this build is basically endless. You could do the weirdest version of Blink. You could be Control. You can do tokens. You can do Tribal. It's very open-ended. I'm a big fan of what Zinnia offers to the table.
Really great design and a really silly hat on that little bird.
Oh, telling you, Blue, this has been the best part of Bloomburrow is that we get all of these fantastic animals in all of these silly outfits. I'm a big fan of this.
The art has been unbelievable in this set. The final deck we're going to talk about tonight, or the only deck if you're watching this as a split, is the Peace Offering deck, which is a Bant group hug counters 2 spells matters deck.
I'm very excited to see what you have to say about this. I have not looked into this one that much, but I know people are talking about this one.
Spoiler alert is I dig this deck quite a lot.
Oh, really?
I'm also shout out to Data Priest on our Discord, who I have been extensively running through, working on a Kroos defense contractor deck, which is a very similar vibe to this. So the face commander of this is Ms. Flower, which is a 4-mana 1/5 legendary rabbit citizen with vigilance. And it says, whenever you cast a spell, target opponent draws a card. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. It gains flying until the end of turn. And if this is the second time this ability has resolved this turn, you draw 2 cards. Lots to process there. So the thing you're going to do is every time you cast a spell, you're going to make an opponent draw a card. Just force them to. You also will put a +1/+1 counter on something, whether it's your own creature or an opponent's creature. That creature gains flying until the end of turn. So there's a ton of politics that are involved in this, where you'll be like, hey, I'm going to cast this cantrip, and you're going to draw a card, and then I'm going to give your creature +1/+1 and flying because it's not attacking me. So you want to be giving out gifts. It's the whole point of, it's based off of the mechanic from Bloomburrow, which is giving a gift, which is promising to promise a gift, which is giving the opponent something, whether it's a card or a token or something. So it's neat. That's the whole thing that Ms. Bumbleflower does. And then again, like, you really want to be casting 2 spells a turn because that is going to refill your hand with those 2 cards, which is really where the group hug strategy fails, is when you start giving other people too many things. The benefit here is going to be giving gifts out pretty evenly around the table. So if I give you a gift of a card and then I give Jared, who's editing the audio, a gift of the card, then each of you have drawn 1, but then I have drawn 2. So I'm still coming out ahead here. Or if you just have a partner or somebody you're teamed up with, you can just go like, I'm giving you 2 cards, I get 2 cards, and we're eating good tonight. So that's Ms. Bumbleflower. Really fun to say too. And then
not as cool as
the alternate commander is Mr. Foxglove, which is 2 green, white, and a blue. So Bant colors for a 3/5 Fox Rogue with lifelink. And whenever Mr. Foxglove attacks, draw cards equal to the number of cards in defending player's hand minus the number of cards in your hand. If you didn't draw cards this way, you may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. Huh? So let's talk through the math of this. If you're attacking the player who has more cards than you, let's say you have 1 card in hand. And if I have 1 card in hand, you have 7 cards in hand, and I'm attacking you with Mr. Foxglove, I'm going to draw 6 cards. Because it's 7 minus 1. I'm just going to match you. I'm going to windfall up to you. If we both have 7 cards in hand and I'm attacking you, 7 minus 7 is 0. I draw 0 cards. I get to put a creature into play. If you have less cards in hand than me, you're doing worse.
Have some more, please. I insist.
You just get to pour salt in the wound because your hand minus mine is a negative number, which means you draw 0 cards and just get to slam a creature into play. So Mr. Foxglove is good on every situation. Like, between being able to just refill your hand by attacking the player with the most cards in hand, or if you are the most cards in hand, or there is somebody who is hellbent, and you just go like, attack you, here's a Greater of Beam. Not in the deck, by the way, and I would not recommend putting it in the deck. It's just as an example. So Mr. Foxglove is very cool. I think that you should keep Ms. Bumbleflower in the command zone. And keep Mr. Foxglove either in the deck or build a really sick Mr. Foxglove deck on his own.
You could even say it'd be fantastic.
A fantastic Mr. Foxglove, indeed. A couple of new cards to talk about. The one that has gotten definitely the most buzz is Bloodroot Apothecary, which is 3 mana for a 3/3 Squirrel Druid with Toxic 2. So get your poison counters out.
I'm so sad that this wasn't in the Squirrel deck.
I know. This is the best Squirrel that they've printed. When it enters, you and target opponent each create a treasure token. And then it says, whenever an opponent sacrifices a non-creature token, that player gets 2 poison counters. This says, don't use your treasures. Don't sacrifice your food. Don't sacrifice any of your stuff. You get 5 of them total before you lose the game to poison from this. And it just naturally has Toxic 2 as well on a 3/3 for 3 that makes you a treasure. It gives you a rebate and gives your opponent just bait. You hit a rebate and they get bait. Bloodroot Apothecary is nuts. I don't think I need to harp on about it. I think it's a ridiculous card. This is going to be a green staple going forward because Treasure just runs absolutely rampant and has had relatively little hate against it. So having something like Bloodroot Apothecary is going to be really good in your green decks.
And let's talk outside of Treasure. That says for any non-creature tokens. So like you're doing clues, you're doing food.
See you, Morska.
Yep.
See you, Frodo.
Junk tokens from dog meat.
See you, dog meat.
Get out of here. Absolutely not.
Dog meat probably tramples over you before it ever cares about sacrificing junk. But
I guess so, fair.
In like a pirate deck that cares about treasure, like all of a sudden you've shut down half their strategy. This is a really, really good counter to Dockside Extortionist. I do wish that Bloodroot Apothecary had been 2 mana for maybe some less power on it, so that it would be an actual counter to Dockside Extortionist, because there's currently basically none.
Or give it ward.
Yeah, or give it ward instead of why instead of Toxic 2? Why did they decide to throw poison counters in here for some reason?
Peace, I guess.
Wild. Anyway, that's Bloodroot Apothecary. There I was harping on with it when I said I wasn't going to. Next new card, 20-toed Toad. And for those listening, Yay. That is TOED TOAD. That's 20-toed Toad. That is 10 toes per feet. 20-toed Toad is a 4-mana 3/3 frog wizard with the text that says your maximum hand size is 20. 1 for each toe.
One card in each toe.
1 card per toe. It says whenever you attack with 2 or more creatures, you put a +1/+1 counter on it and draw a card. And then whenever it attacks, you win the game if there are 20 or more counters on it, or you have 20 or more cards in hand. This is just a really easy all-win card.
I love that it says it doesn't care the kind of counters that are on it. If you can find the means to throw any kind of counters onto this Toad. Yes.
Shield counters. Actually, the goal would be put 1 of each counter on it. 1 for each toe, of course.
Exactly.
Yeah, really good. I mean, 4 mana for a 3/3 is whatever. giving you essentially no max hand size. Like, do you remember a 100-handed one from Theros that says it can block 99 creatures?
99 additional creatures. Yeah,
this feels like that, where it's like your maximum hand size is 20. It's like functionally that's no max hand size. And then if it's not no max hand size for you and you are over 20, yeah, because it says if you have 20 or more cards in hand when it attacks, you win the game. So this is going to be a problem. We'll some spoilers for the rest of my talk here about this deck, but there's a couple of alt win cons in here. This is, I would say, the main win con for the deck is alt win cons. 20-toed Toad being one of them. Couple more cards to talk about here. We've got the Octomancer, which is just so silly. It's a 5-mana 3/3 frog druid with gift and octopus, which for those keeping track at home is an 8/8 octopus token. So you just gives that to somebody. And then Octomancer says, Octomancer says at the beginning of each end step, create a token that's a copy of target creature token that entered the battlefield this turn. So on face value, you're going to gift somebody an 8/8, and then you're going to make an 8/8. And then on the subsequent turns, as the squirrel deck is making some squirrels or is sawing something in half or whatever, you just get on each end step to make a copy of a creature token that entered under that opponent's turn. And then back on your turn, you just make similar things. You just make more tokens of stuff of yours that's entering. I think it's goofy. It probably is bad because they could just kill your Octomancer before you get a copy of it, and then you've just given them an 8/8 for 5 mana. Like, objectively bad. However, I think it's real neat.
Yeah, because you can certainly mitigate that, because I have seen here, like scrolling down through, there's stuff in here like the martial impetus and promise of loyalty and things like that. Like, you can stop the 8/8 from coming at you. So
definitely you can. Well, even just you have an 8/8. Like, if they, let's say they don't. This card is just asking to be blown out is the problem. Like, you've spent 5 mana on giving somebody an 8/8 and they kill it, and then that's probably your whole turn. And then you just pass. Like, however, if it does stick around, you get an 8/8 as well, which I think is enough mitigation of people not attacking you. Let's just move on from there. It's a neat card. I think I'm going to try to find a place to put that card. I just think it's so cool. Last one, another gift card that I think is some of the wildest text I've ever seen is Perch Protection, which is 4 white and white for an instant that says gift an extra turn. So you just give an opponent another turn for 6 mana. And it's create 4 2/2 blue bird tokens with flying. If the gift was promised, all permanents you control phase out, and until your next turn, your life total can't change, and you gain protection from everything. And it exiles itself. It's Teferi's Protection. That is the exact text on Teferi's Protection, plus make 8 flying power and give somebody another turn that you can't be touched during. I'm obsessed with this. Let me just say.
I know you as a fan of Taunt from the Ramparts.
Yes, this is like a mono white Taunt from the Ramparts, where it's like, hey, I'll see you guys later. This guy who's the problem gets another turn. Like, I'm dipping out of this. You guys can deal with him. I'll see you later.
I'll just be sitting here in my roost.
Yeah, huge fan. It obviously is 6 mana for an instant, but it's 6 mana like dynamically change the game. So very into that. And one last thing I wanted to talk about with some of the new cards is about Tempt with Bunnies.
Yes,
which is I have a very brief discussion of this, which is it's a very simple card. It's 3 mana for a sorcery that says that you draw a card and make a 1/1 bunny, make a 1/1 rabbit, and then the tempting offer is that any other player can do that, and then for each player that does, you make another 1/1 rabbit and draw a card. I think it's a really good card, and I would actually, any place that you're playing Cut a Deal, I would say you should replace it with Tempt with Bunnies. because the ceiling is significantly higher, because at max with Tempt with Bunnies, you're going to make 4 1/1s and draw 4 cards for 3 mana in white, which is crazy. Cut a Deal, the max is your opponents are each going to draw a card and you're going to draw 3. So I really like Tempt with Bunnies. I like Cut a Deal as well. I just want to say, like, I'm a fan of Cut a Deal. And I want to actively replace that card with Tempt with Bunnies. So that is my talk about Tempt with Bunnies. I know that you're a fan of it, John, as a Campbell player.
Yeah, let's go.
Like 8 bunnies or whatever.
Yes.
Neat. Well, let's talk about some reprints in the deck now that we've gone through the new cards. The reprint section is not amazing in this deck. If you wanted to build this card actively right now, it would cost about $143 to buy the reprints from this deck, which is like okay value compared to what they've been giving us with other precons. There's 2 reprints that are over $5. Which is a Colonian Hydra, which is dope. That's a game ender. We love Colonian Hydra. It's currently sitting at $15. It obviously will not be anymore after this gets printed. And then I had to dig real deep, and there is a Tameo Field Researcher that's sitting at $7. That obviously is the animal art one that you'll be getting in the deck.
I mean, you've also got Lorna the Third Path's also in here. It's $5.
Yeah. So what I've been doing with my reprints is I've been going like, oh, these are the really good reprints that they've given us that are like somewhere between like above 5, above 10-ish. And then it's like that $5-ish range, like I did with the Raccoons deck, was like, yeah, these are cards that I'm excited are in here. And like when I'm building a deck, I'm debating whether or not I'm going to buy a $5 card or not. And Lorna the Third Path is in that one. So in the $5-ish reprint, though, there's still only 4 cards. It's Lorna the Third Path, Fabro Elder, Offer You Can't Refuse, and Tempt with Discovery. All 4 very good cards. It just sucks that of our good reprints, quote unquote, in the deck, there's a total of 6. So not amazing, but it is a cool deck. And let's go ahead and make it better. So the quick upgrade guide for this is to really lean into the interesting strategy that we have here of playing the politics and just giving out gifts. You're not necessarily going to be the target at the table because everyone else is benefiting from what you're doing. And what Ms. Bumbleflower finally does in a group hug strategy is it allows you to benefit more than what other people are. So the issue that I've had for a long time with things like, let's say, Howling Mine, which I'm so glad they didn't include in this deck. Howling Mine is kind of your classic group hug card that draws everybody an extra card on your draw step. The problem with that is it draws 3 cards for your opponents and 1 for yourself for 2 mana. So it's a bad play. Ms. Bumbleflower allows you to give your opponents extra cards, but you're going to get 2. So like that opponent gets 1, that opponent gets 1, and I get 2 cards. So I'm still coming out on top here. So all of your group hug cards, I hit my microphone, I'm sorry. All of your group hug cards are now going to be benefiting you just slightly more than what they're benefiting everybody else. So big fan of how they're doing group hug here. It's also just sort of a weird control deck, like that you have things like an Offer You Can't Refuse, which is an unbelievably good counterspell in this deck. So you're kind of playing this weird control deck that's just sitting back and not being the problem for a while. And then, like I said before, most of your win cons in the deck are alternate win cons. Like there is a Simic Ascendancy in the deck, which wins when you have put 20 counters on creatures or creatures you control.
Whenever you put 1 or more +1/+1 counters, when 1 or more +1/+1 counters are put on a creature you control. Yep, so just creatures.
Okay, so as Mrs. Bumbleflower is putting counters on stuff, it's going to be putting a counter on Simic Ascendancy as well. And then when there's 20 or more, or is it at the upkeep? I need to read this card.
Up at the beginning of your upkeep, if it has 20 or more growth counters on it, you win the game.
Perfect. So like that's what you are wanting to do is just slam that and then sit there with Bumbleflower and try to not be the problem until it's got 20 on it. So you've got Simic Ascendancy. We've already talked about 20-toed Toad. And then there's a Triskaidekaphile in the deck, which is similar to 20-toed Toad, which is, God, that's so hard to say over and over. Triskaidekaphile makes your max hand size 13. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, if you have 13 cards in hand, you win the game. And it has a loot ability, I think.
No, just a card draw ability.
Card draw ability, even better. So you have 3 alternate win cons already in the deck, which is pretty unprecedented for a precon. This is obviously a strategy they want you to be playing. So I would say let's lean a little bit harder into we're playing a control deck and we're sometimes just going to accidentally win the game. I think you'll find more wins with that than kind of the traditional, like, I'm putting counters and swinging with things with it. So a couple of cards that I would add to this is my freaking boy, Master of Ceremonies. I'm shocked that it's not in this deck. It's essentially Tempting Offer every upkeep. I've never seen it get targeted by anything because everyone loves Master of Ceremonies. So it's a 4-mana thing. What it really says is you're going to Ancestral Recall every turn because it gives your opponents the options of drawing a card, making a treasure, or making a 1/1 citizen. And anything that they pick, you get as well. So most of the time what that ends up being is all 3 of your opponents chose to draw a card and you draw 3, which again breaks parity on those group hug spells. So love Master of Ceremonies. He's also just a hoot. Like, what a great card. We mentioned him earlier. I want to add a Kroos Defense Contractor into this deck. Not in the command zone, but in the 99, because Kroos cares about counters being put on your opponent's creatures, which Miss Bumbleflower does very efficiently because she does that every time you cast a spell. So now every spell you cast says, tap your creature, it's goated. And it has a +1/+1 counter on it. And the incidental, like, you can put a shield counter on Bumbleflower, and then you have protection for it. So love Kroos Defense Contractor in here. This was immediately the first thing that I thought of when this deck even got spoiled. Third card we're adding. We already talked about some alternate win cons. I think we should put Approach of the Second Sun in this deck. I think we lean a little bit harder into the alt win cons. I think Mrs. Bumbleflower does enough card draw that you're going to mitigate. You're going to go from like the it's going to take me 7 turns to get back to this Approach of the Second Sun, all the way down to like, this might take me 3 turns to get back to this Approach of the Second Sun. Or it could be 2 turns. By the time you like go 2 more cycles with it, you just get it, you cast it again, you win the game. I'm a big fan of Approach of the Second Sun. I play it and I love it. Last 2 are very similar cards. I want to add a Propaganda and a Ghostly Prison into this deck.
I'm genuinely surprised those aren't in here.
I can't believe there's even like Ghostly Prison is like the easy one to throw in. But you will find at some point in the game, people will realize that you are not just the kind little bunny that you are making yourself out to be. And they will need to attack you because you've set up a game-winning position, like with a Simic Ascendancy or something, like with Approach of the Second Sun, and they're like, oh my god, we have 3 turns to get rid of you, otherwise we're all going to lose. And in Ghostly Prison and Propaganda, just keep you safe. They just are pillow forts that keep you nice and cozy inside. So that's the 5 cards I want to add to this deck. A couple things I want to pull out. Steelbur Champion is actually 1, 2, 3. There are 3 of the new cards that I want to pull out. Let's start by talking about Steelbur Champion. Let me find it real quick. Steelbur Champion is 2 and a white for a 1/1 mouse soldier with offspring 1 and a white. Wrong deck. It's got vigilance, and when an opponent casts a non-creature spell, you put a +1/+1 counter on the creature. This is so boring. This is not what you want to be doing in this deck. Brilliant. This is what you want to be doing. Hey, why is this not in the Offspring deck? Because this would be really good there.
Unconditional non-creature spell casting. Man, that makes it such a good card now.
I don't want to hear it. Okay, so we're cutting Steelbur Champion. Long River's Pull is blue and a blue for an instant. with gift a card. So you let an opponent draw a card off of this, and it just says counter target creature spell. If the gift was promised, instead counter target spell. So this is like worse counterspell, which counterspell is not even a card that I would play in this deck because of the blue requirement. I think this will end up rotting in your hand a lot of the time. And I'm not down to play strictly worse cards just because they're slightly thematic. I think if we want a counterspell in the deck, we should just put a counterspell in the deck, which there is, at least one other of. But we also we want to be casting spells and putting counters on things. So letting your opponent's stuff resolve is not the worst thing to happen in this deck, because you can encourage them to attack other people with creatures and things like that. So I'm not really into countering creature spells in here. So let's go ahead and get rid of Long River's Pull. Third card we're getting rid of is Fisher's Talent. It's an enchantment. Fisher's Talent is 4 mana. So it's 2 green and a blue. Or it's a class like the other one we talked about. So at the beginning of your upkeep, you look at the top card of your library, and you may reveal it if it's a land card. And if it is, you make a 1/1 blue fish and then draw a card. So if you flip a land, you get to draw a card, make a 1/1 blue fish. And its second level is if you would make a fish token, you instead make a 3/3 blue shark token, and that costs 2 mana to get to. And then it's 4 mana to get to level 3, which is if you would make a shark token, you make an 8/8 blue octopus instead. My goodness, this card is so cool, and it does exactly nothing. Oh my goodness. The flavor and the story that this card is telling is unbelievable. So as the fisherman is getting better, he's pulling in better fish. I am completely obsessed with this, except you have basically no way to make sure you're going to pull land off of this and make tokens. And it's 4 mana for probably doing nothing the turn that it comes in. Actually, it does exactly nothing the turn that it comes in. And it probably does nothing on your next upkeep too. So it's you're going to go around the table a couple of times before anything happens with Fisher's Talent. And that is not a card that I would like to play in here. So we're getting rid of that one. That's 3 new cards that we're cutting. Because I want a Fisher's. Actually, I might put Fisher's Talent in my Takasha deck because we're doing top deck manipulation. I can just leave a land on top and just get tokens off of it. But even there, it's 4 mana is so much for that. So we're getting rid of that. Next thing we're cutting is maybe a bit of an unconventional cut, but I'm putting Evolving Wilds from this deck. There's 38 lands in the deck, which already feels high to me with ramp in a green deck. So I don't think we need it. We don't have anything that's really benefiting us for having lands in the graveyard. So I'm not excited about playing bad fetch lands. And I don't like Evolving Wilds in 3-color decks, just as a principle. I think that you can play a Guildgate would do you better than an Evolving Wilds does here, since it would come in tapped for 2 of your colors rather than coming in tapped for 1 of your colors. So I would say get rid of Evolving Wilds. I think this deck totally functions on 37 lands.
How about Psychosis Crawler from here?
I think we're drawing enough cards that Psychosis Crawler is incidentally going to do a lot of damage.
Sure,
and our hand is always going to be full.
But my reasoning behind that is how about because of what you said is you're trying to make yourself not the problem until you are the problem. A Psychosis Crawler, the moment it comes down, reads as the problem. Because every time it's at worst, the floor, worst case scenario is that it's going to get itself blown up the moment it comes down into play because no one wants to be pinged as you're drawing the cards. This is the kind of thing that a group hug should not be playing because it reads itself out as the threat as soon as it comes down.
You've convinced me. We're taking Psychosis Crawler out of the deck. Very neat. Well, that is the group hug deck. And I think of the 4 decks, this is probably the one that I would be the most interested in buying. This strategy speaks a lot to things that I enjoy doing. I like winning in unconventional ways. I like not being the problem for a while. I think it's a really dope deck, and I'm excited that they're finally giving some love to group hug, which is a strategy that they have not really pumped in a while. So that's it. Man, we've made it through.
So in our wrap-up thoughts here, since we have now finished covering all of these here, what do you think? Like, how's this settled as far as what the decks are trying to do, what the theming is trying to promote, right? Because like we've barely even touched the fact that like this is Animal World Magic,
right?
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I think they did a really good job with these. I think it like. I'm having trouble finding any words other than like these are just fun decks. Like they're fun strategies. Fun. They look like a lot of fun to play against each other. Like I think that these would make a really good battle box of just you play these 4 decks against each other as they are slightly upgraded, whatever. But the sort of they ebb and flow on this philosophy with precons where they go from these very focused. God, I gotta stop hitting my microphone. They go from these very focused decks that have just one strategy to them, and then they'll give us a few like these ones where there's a couple of different branching directions that you can go with it, where you can do, is this a +1/+1 counters deck? Is this a group hug deck? Is this an enchantment matters deck? Do we care about landfall? Like, there's so many neat little things in each of them that you could just cut an entire strategy out of each of these decks and hyper focus them and have 3 or 4 different directions it could go. And I really appreciate that. I've kind of come around on that. I used to not like that they were like so scattered on them, and they have really done a great job with precons in the last couple of years. These are still leagues above where precons were even 3 years ago. So I'm a big fan of what they're doing here.
It's a kind of philosophy that, like, even if you're not necessarily grabbing the most bang for your buck as far as purchasing these precons as is, once you've done your playing of them and you want to try to take your components between each deck and split them off into different directions, you've already now got your pieces that you were going to naturally put in that deck anyway. So these are very good for the people who are looking to purchase a deck to play as is. These are good for people who are looking to try and purchase a strategy that is something new or refreshing that they don't already have in their collection. And then people like us who have very established deck strategies and ideas that we enjoy playing, these are great for the people who are looking to purchase a collection of cards, staples or non-staples, that you were already going to be putting into these assortments of decks anyways. Like you said, a deck strategy that has sort of 2.5-ish kind of like ideas going between itself, between its commander, its alt commander, and the reprints and new cards that come in it. You've now got yourself a components of pieces that you can take about a third of this and put it over here. Take this half and slot it over here. And then everything else can sit in your trade binder.
Totally. Yeah, I like these. I think in the last couple of years, these are the ones that I have cared about the most. The set as well. Like Bloomburrow is a really very cool set that they're handing us. It feels sort of old school Magic. Like it feels a bit Lorwyn-y, which I never got the chance to play. So it kind of feels like a return to some roots for Magic with a neat play. And it's cool that there's no humans. We haven't seen a single human on any of these and in any of these planes and in these arts, anything. It's just all animals, and it just makes it really cutesy.
Yep. I agree 100%. I still don't think it's something that like I don't think I'm going out of my way to purchase any of these immediately, but there are certainly singles from the brand new card designs that I'm very interested to pull out. So,
like Pollywog Prodigy.
No.
All right. Well, that's probably where we should end this. If you guys made it this far, thank you so much for watching. Go ahead and let us know in the comments below which of these decks you're excited about. Are you getting any of the cards? Are you mad at me and John for arguing about Pollywog Prodigy? Just holler at us down below or on our Discord if you want to jump on there as well. We'd love to see you. We'd love to hang out with you. We'd love to play some games with you. Thanks so much for watching. This was a long one. This is a marathon, but this has been the MTG Thoughtcast, and we will see you next time.